I couldn't hold out anymore. I caved. For too long have I been without my mighty Ghorgon. For too long have I yearned for their cuddles. You return to Warhammer 2, where beasts and Bretonnian Knights roam free across the plains without a care in the world. It's a simpler time then, all those months ago. But Maligor the Crowfather and King Louen the Lionhearted about to put on a show for our entertainment. Really good battle, and a long one too, over 20 minutes. Now for the Cloven ones, it so often boils down to whether or not they can handle the king on his Hippogriff, who's a force in this matchup, and many others, arguably one of the strongest lords in mortal empires. And to that end, the Beastmen have recruited two of my favorite monsters in the series, the quad-armed behemoths of the Drakwold, the Ghorgon. Love this unit. Incredible model, incredible animations, able to heal themselves in the scrum as strength from flesh knits their wounds closed. Blood Greed, heavy cavalry speed, and 30 bonus versus large means it is a fantastic monster hunter and punisher of enemy cavalry. Naturally, it is quite susceptible to focus fire from missiles, which Bretonnia can handle quite well with peasant bowman spam, but unlike giants, the Ghorgon actually has the ability to reposition quickly if they're being shot. At the helm of the army is the Dark Omen himself, Maligor the Harbinger, a symbol of disease, famine, and death throughout the Empire and beyond. Enfeebling Foe, Pendulum, and Savage Dominion are his spells. He's the fastest character in Warhammer at 121 speed, and he lowers enemy leadership whenever he looms overhead. When he started flying, he turned into a bit of a powerhouse. The rest of the army is Ungors and Raiders for some skirmish, Goreherd, 2 Razor Gore, and 1 Centaur patrolling the back line to protect those archers, but across the strawberry fields of Toothgrass Hill come the majestic Knights of Bretonnia, commanded by Romulan Dog. In the vanguard are a host of Pegasus Knights, who could potentially catch Maligor if he slips up, and they would slaughter him in seconds if they managed to pin him down and get a full surround. 12 bonus versus large isn't huge, but a flank or rear charge into pretty much any Beastman unit from these guys will melt them. And of course, King Louen is leading the army on his Hippogriff Bakis with his Sword of Couronne, Lady's Champion Regen, and the Blessing of the Lady. One of those lords who's already very tough to bring down, but even if you manage to deal with them, there's a good chance he takes flight, camps in the air for a while, and comes back with full HP to terrorize you all over again. Supported by a Damsel of the Lore of Beast, Curse of Anrahir, and Wyson's Wild Form, and an army of Battle Pilgrims and Knights of the Realm, which are definitely the cost-efficient choice in this matchup. Their charges obliterate low armor infantry, and their bonus versus large allows them to deal with the bigger targets too. Four mounted Yao Meow men will run out the rest of the build, and they have an important role to play here as well. They can focus fire those Ghorgons, but opting for a more mobile army as the Cygor opens up, pounding some peasants into paste with Savage Dominion. It's one of Maligor's favorite pastimes. But yeah, this is a mobile army that can't really have its backline compromised, trying to avoid a situation where 5 peasant archers all get run down by hounds or centaurs without shooting anything, but sacrificing a bit on the firepower side as a result. So those mounted Yaomen need to conserve ammo to deal with the 4-armed giants. If they waste a lot of their shots here, it might not, it might be difficult to deal with 2 Ghorgons. A double Ghorgon build means they can cut through a lot of knights and certainly even outduel Louen and his Pegasus homies as well. I'm always a bit torn on the best way to utilize Savage Dominion now with the way Crumbling works with summons. I'm not sure that it's always worth it to summon it right away and try to force them to charge you. I think Battle Pilgrims are probably worth shooting at. If it was just regular peasants, maybe you wouldn't want to summon it at all and instead use them for their melee capabilities to pin down Louen when he decides to charge in, just to help bolster your front line. But in this case, I think Battle Pilgrims probably are worth blowing up with boulders from downtown, so the summon's probably not a terrible idea there, and Pilgrims were taken down to half HP, and one of the other ones down to they lost about a 1/5 of their health too, so certainly some really good shots from that first Cygor, but maybe gonna hold on to the other one, waiting for a more opportune moment when the Knights and the rest of those mounted troops for Bretonnia are committed. Bit of poking and prodding at the start, just trying to make it a little bit easier for these frontline troops to rout when the Knights of the Realm inevitably commit, and that's a big charge right there, man. That is why Knights of the Realm are so good here. Did you see how much HP they lost when they made impact? It's kind of scary for the Beastmen, because everything in their army is just super low armor, and it means that when the Knights of the Realm touch you, you die. Their momentum, their impact damage, that in and of itself is enough to dumpster a lot of these frontline troops, and even the Centaurs and Razor Gore herd they can't really be the first ones to commit to charge those knights, because in a frontal engagement with them, they will lose handily. They have to follow up behind infantry, which means they have to be waiting just behind the front ranks, which can be a bit challenging to position appropriately. Looks like the poopy peasants are first onto the breach for their fief and lord. Some of them may die, but that is a sacrifice King Louen is willing to make, and the Gore herd will greet them in kind. Nice little maneuver here, pulling out the chaff spears and leaving behind the akimbo-wielding dual axe Gores. Should allow that fight to go much quicker. And you'd think players would rely more on shielded Gores against Bretonnia, but a lot of people subscribe to the idea that a good offense is the best defense here, and the double axe Gores chop through infantry quite a bit quicker, although of course they're more susceptible to being shot by peasant bowmen. The Ghorgons are into melee now, and every time they make contact, it's just satisfaction. Welcome back, Blood Pack. It does not get old. Instant terror rout for the peasants in the front ranks here, and what is that in the background? It's looking like a Curse of Anra here, well positioned. That is going to clip a large portion of the Bray herd, just as the Razor Gore herd and the Centaurs are moving forward. And they realize they overextended, they try to pull away, and the slow is going to catch them. Then the Razor Gore herd are fully committed. The piggies will drop quickly against the bonus versus large of these shock formations. King Louen roaring in from the flank with his Sword of Couronne, minus 24 melee defense and minus 30 armor in an AoE, and even though armor isn't really the Beastmen's forte, that minus 24 melee defense is going to make it even more difficult for the Centaurs and the Ungor archers here to survive this onslaught. Knights of the Realm, Pegasus Knights are fully going in, and ironically, it looks like the Beastmen will have to box up and do their best to defend their back line, which is not something you see that often in this matchup. It's typically the other way around. Bretonnia trying to defend their peasant bowmen from a bunch of fast movers, but when you go this heavy on the Knights, and then there are a bunch of Ghorgons on the field too, well, that mobility game is always just so important for both factions, and the Knights need to be very careful with a Cygor summon, second Savage Dominion from Malagor throwing in boulders, and the Ghorgons eternally on the hunt. Many of these Knights are going to look for that honorable duel to be the one to slay this mighty creature, but they really don't want to fight the Ghorgon until a lot of this infantry is completely cleared off. So their right to disengage, their right to run away, Weisson's Wild Form, and Lance Formation, an overcast of that Lore of Beast spell, hitting a bunch of the Knights back here, and King Louen is leading a huge charge into the Beastmen back line, and they've tied up a large portion of the enemy army, and they're causing all kinds of carnage here. The Bray herd is folding like paper mache where they've made impact. Malagor can only sit by and watch. Doesn't really have a ton of spells that are good for clearing out cavalry. Pendulum is strong in Warhammer 2, but it's not on Warhammer 3 levels, and it was never really meant to kill cavalry anyway. Ghorgon dealing with a bunch of infantry over on the other side. But now the Ghorgon and a bunch of the infantry have come in, and perhaps this is an overcommit from the Cav, but the crazy thing about King Louen leading the charge is that he'll tear out everything in front of all those knights, and they can just use that avenue to escape. Another Curse of Anra here coming out of the Lore of Beast Damsel. Battle Pilgrims being scythed apart by the four-armed Ghorgon, and the second Savage Dominion Cygor summon crumbled out and will make no further impact. Mounted Yeomen, two of them are pretty much out of ammunition, and they haven't gotten a lot of shots into the Ghorgon yet. I think the other two are going to hold on to as much ammo as possible to deal with these single entities. Bretonnia has created kind of a half crescent around the Bray herd, continuously cycle charging, but not trying to overcommit too much. And they've done a good job clearing out a lot of the Ungor Raiders and some of the counters to those Mounted Yeomen. King Louen is caught out by the Ghorgon and Malagor the Crowfather at the moment, but he should be able to disengage just fine. He's got plenty of mass, and as long as he doesn't lose that regen, he can take flight and come back just as healthy as he always was. Remlin Dog's doing a great job of hunting down some of the stragglers, and this is the great thing about having King Louen as your lord, and then having this much speed in your army, is once the Beastmen start breaking off from the main box, they run towards the edges of the map, and the Pegasus Knights and the Knights of the Realm can then isolate and destroy those pockets that can't really defend themselves. There's no way Ungor Raiders will be able to survive that kind of situation. So, nicely played there. Mounted Yeomen do need to be careful. They still have some ammo left. They're going to need that to deal with the Ghorgons. But a lot of routing on the Bretonnian side too, and this is one of the issues if you're going to go for a foot lord, is you can't really run away from 64 speed. Heavy cavalry speed is too much, but foot characters in general don't get sniped out very easily in Warhammer 2, even by monsters with a ton of killing power. And while they're rampaging, they're more just knocking her around. She might rout a couple times, but it'll be difficult for the Ghorgon to actually finish her off. It is a bonus versus large monster. It's meant to duel the big, high-value targets, not hunt down 500, 600 gold casters. It's an orgy of slaughter anytime the Ghorgon shows up to the party, but the Knights of the Realm have just gotten some fantastic charges throughout the course of this battle, and they have consistently been able to find, isolate, and destroy the skirmish power for the Beastmen. They've also destroyed a lot of their mobility too. The Razorgore herd and Centaurs are long gone. Now they're focusing on the infantry. They'll get their charges off no matter what. It's just important that the Ghorgons are able to sit there and punish them, so they will need to operate amongst their own foot troops, amongst the Gors. If they overextend and the infantry is left isolated where you're not punishing those cav every time they charge in, and this could quickly snowball out of control in the favor of Bretonnia. But so far, the Beastmen are holding on. In the foreground, they're looking pretty strong, actually. In the background, maybe not so much, with King Louen charging in from behind. That should be a tear rout momentarily. The Ghorgons are there once more, and it's gonna come down to a duel at some point between Louen and Ghorgons. Question is, will the mounted yeomen have enough ammunition to take them down? And now they're beginning to focus fire, and this is where we might see those single entity monsters for the Beastmen starting to question how comfortable they are with how this battle is progressing. Focus fire on a single entity that large with only 50 armor hurts really bad, and they aren't going to regen in the same capacity that Louen does. Louen doesn't have to be in melee to get his health back. The Ghorgons do. So if they run out of fodder to kill, then they won't be getting any regen until they actually have to fight Louen himself. And at that point, well, his Sword of Corone and a lot of his debuffs and the charges from those Pegasus Knights will be quite detrimental. There's a lot of routing on the Bretonnian side, a mass rout up at the top of your screen. And one of the biggest issues for the Knights of Bretonnia is that these Ghorgons are very healthy right now, and there is not a lot of ammo left on those mounted yeomen. So they may have to commit fully to a melee grind with a bonus versus large monster that has 520 weapon strength, a ton of armor piercing. And I think in a straight up fight, one Ghorgon can probably beat Louen. Now that's obviously not how a fight would normally go. Louen would cycle charge a lot, and he will continue to do that throughout the course of this battle. But the Ghorgons can put the whooping on Louen if he decides to land right next to them, and he doesn't have his Sword of Corone pop. So you will have to be careful, and Bretonnia is going to struggle to kill a full HP Ghorgon if they don't have anything to shoot them down. Which is why they're going for an Alpha Strike. That's a nice Curse of Anra here that will lower his speed by 24%, put him around 90 or so, and Pegasus Knights are 105, and they're in charge range, so they're basically touching his booty. And Malagor, run, fly, my friend, run away, escape, do everything you can in your power, because if Malagor dies, that's a huge leadership debuff for an army that really does not deal well with leadership penalties. Beastmen just are not known for their morale or their staying power. So, yeah, losing Malagor would be a huge issue, but it looks like he might be okay for now. He's beginning to gain some ground with his 121 speed once Curse of Anra here wears off, but you can see why Bretonnia would want to get rid of him. We haven't seen a ton of spells. I think we saw one Pendulum on a Battle Pilgrim and the 2 Savage Dominions, but I don't know, he might only have room for 1 or 2 more enfeebling foes throughout the course of this battle. So he won't be casting a lot more, but now he's just here for the leadership bonuses, and yeah, he is going to be able to escape from them. And King Louen would probably be better served coming over here and trying to get some charges on the isolated Ghorgons as they hunt down his poor damsel. How is she still alive? I'm not kidding, she's terror routed. She's routed 3 times. I think she broke once and terror routed twice. I'm not sure how she hasn't shattered, but she is the tankiest foot lady on planet Earth, shrouded for the 4th time this game. Just tossing her salad, not able to land attacks on her, I guess. Meanwhile, the Knights of the Realm, they have to get close to these Ghorgons, and they're doing tons of damage every time they do. A lot of the Knights are actually pinned down in and amongst these infantry. That could be disastrous if the Ghorgon's able to march its way over. And they might rout. Yeah, they had enough of their cavalry formation tied up. They had to go back in. They were pulled back into the scrum, and the Ghorgon landed a couple more attacks. He got 4 or 5 dead Knights around him, so they're routing, but they shall return. Baltimore is in favor of the Beastmen right now, and it's pretty much solely due to those Ghorgons. But yeah, the one in the background hunted the damsel and did land one more attack on her, as this one just continues to absolutely lawn mow, bulldoze everything in its path. But this is an important fight for Bretonnia. They have finally isolated a Ghorgon without infantry support. Curse of Anra here lowering the melee attack, and Sword of Corone lowering the armor and melee defense. A rear charge from King Louen and his Hippogriff Bakis, down to 0 melee defense, but his brother has stomped his way over, and now they are fighting for what could decide the battle. King Louen and the Pegasus Knights, they realized they might have overstayed their welcome. No, they're going back in. I thought they'd actually run away. The Pegasus Knights are fully committed now, and they're gonna die. They're not gonna win that fight. They just routed off. But Bretonnia is committing everything now. The Mounted Yeomen, the Knights of the Realm, the peasants, everything is charging and getting a full surround here. They want to pick off one Ghorgon and chase it to the edge of the map or kill it outright. If they can do that, that leaves a single isolated Ghorgon, and that'll be tough to win with. They've gotten huge value from strength from flesh. That regeneration in melee has kept one of the Ghorgon topped off the entire time, which is insane. We're 13 minutes into the game, and it looks like it hasn't even been scratched yet. The other one, looking quite a bit less healthy, Battle Pilgrims, Knights of the Realm, and King Louen with that full surround. And as one of the only Beastmen units that actually has decent morale, good leadership, they are holding on admirably in what looks like a pretty bleak situation for them. One of them beginning to waver. Malagor still realizing he can't really do anything. He might be able to pop one more enfeebling foe, but there's not a lot for him to do. King Louen, oh my god, he's out of there too. Everything's routing. The Ghorgon bros killing the game at the moment, but none of these are shattered. They will all return. It's just momentary terror routes and some mass routing going on, but they will come back to the fight, and that Ghorgon is still 1 or 2 hits from routing off and breaking this game wide open again. Again, Baltimore is in favor of the Beastmen, but King Louen still has about 3,500 points worth of regen left, so he's got all the time in the world, and he still has support from his Knights of the Realm. And yes, one of the Ghorgons finally broke off from the pack, leaving the other one by himself. It's a full HP Ghorgon. That's a tall order for the Knights of Bretonnia to deal with, and Lewin's down to half HP, but they got the first part done, and that was maybe the hard part, because when there's 2 single entities fighting back to back, it's a lot harder to deal with than just getting a full surround off on one. It essentially doubles their DPS and doubles the amount of HP you have to cut through to kill him. So what they're gonna do, that 500 HP Ghorgon that's running towards the edge, they will harry that all the way and make sure he does not return. He'll head off towards the temples. Probably the Pegasus Knights or one of the Mounted Yeomen will see to that while Malagor tries to rally him. Meanwhile, this Ghorgon is content to continue shredding his way through all the cavalry that attempt to kill it. Yeah, the Pegasus Knights are leaving, and so is the Ghorgon, so important units on both sides are disappearing. I typically say that's a wash, but I think Bretonnia really wants those Pegasus Knights and their bonus versus large. They're the kind of unit that, if they manage to charge in from behind, can rack up some serious DPS on a unit like the Ghorgon that only has 50 armor. The damsel is still alive. She's an MVP this battle, man. She's gotten some great Curse of Anrahirs. She's absorbed all kinds of attention. I mean, the Ghorgon literally spent like multiple minutes trying to kill her and was unable to do so. Crazy. Another Sword of Corone, King Louen charging in, and the Ghorgon will have to fight it out. He has 212 kills, has 2 chevrons earned, and he hasn't even gotten to the duel with Louen yet. When he actually fights Louen himself and finishes off the rest of this cavalry, his damage value is going to skyrocket even higher. Ghorgon has been an absolute freak this battle, but starting to lose some HP. Both sides will. Remember, King Louen does not have bonus versus large, only 450 weapon strength, which is still high, but not as high as the 520 of the Ghorgon and that 30 bonus versus large, which means the Ghorgon has 87 melee attack against large targets. One Blood Greed and his chevrons are active anyway. More Mounted Yeomen, more Knights of the Realm charging in, and we've got the last stand here. Baltimore shifted a little bit back towards the center, but still in favor of the Brayherds for now. Malagor hunting down some Knights of the Realm who were isolated, and with his cleaver, Something wicked this way comes. -4 leadership. Knights of the Realm breaking off too. Very soon here, King Louen will have no help whatsoever. It will be entirely up to him and his Hippogriff. They've taken down bigger beasts in this, but the Ghorgon is handpicked, born and bred for war, born and bred for killing large targets and enemy monsters. And even though he's been blending infantry, blending cavalry, he's now about to fight the target he's best at fighting. Single entity monsters. This is rough. This might be game if King Louen can't do something here. Damsel about to get picked off, and I think this battle is going to go towards the Bray herd. It'll be close. Single entity is still fighting it out. But King Louen the Lion-Hearted is at his best when he's cycled charging. And he can't do that forever. I mean, he technically can, but in friendly matches, that's typically not how it's going to go. He will go in and fight to the death. And there's just too much HP to cut through. He's got 2,800 HP, and the Ghorgon has 5,500, and both are still regenning. So, yeah, that's Ghorgons all day. Balance board will continue to shift in the favor of the Bray herds. Foe Seeker pops. Damsel coming in. She's been an MVP. She's been an absolute hero. But it will not be enough, and army losses will kick in for Bretonnia very soon. Super entertaining battle, and a very close one. But Beastmen managed to squeak their way out of it on the back of some incredible Ghorgon value. 2,700 on one, 3,500 on the other, and 3 chevrons earned with 95 kills and 255 kills. That might be the best Ghorgon I've ever had on this channel. And I've had some Ghorgon replays where Ghorgons did a lot of work. I mean, 255 kills, 3,500 damage value is insane. Now, Malagor obviously wasn't going to have tons of damage value himself. He wasn't casting many pendulums, only did the one. Has 2 enfeebling foes and then 2 savage dominions, but the Cygor summons will not show up in his damage value. He did plenty for me, and more importantly, he stayed alive. Pretty much any other Beastman lord I could have brought this battle would have probably died. And that might have caused a mass rout, caused the Ghorgons to run earlier, and maybe lost me the game. So just the fact that Malagor is able to fly around and be annoying and stay alive is a big boon for the Bray herds. King Louen was also extremely beastly, almost 3,000 damage value on him. Knights of the Realm are amazing this matchup, and all of them were used well. All of them up past 100 kills, basically. Pegasus Knights even earned a chevron. But yeah, the Mounted Yeomen needed to hold on to a little bit more ammo, and I think that was ultimately the downfall in this one. They needed more focused fire to deal with those Ghorgons in the late game, and even though they were firing at good targets, low armor, squishy targets, they needed more for the single entity monsters. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.